When we talk about the indigenous peoples of the Americas, from Alaska to Tierra del Fuego, from the Caribbean to Greenland, we're talking about a vast human tapestry, nations, traditions, civilizations.
People who are still alive today and whose ancestors walked these lands before pyramids rose, before the Sahara was a desert, before the last ice sheets melted. And the question returns again and again. Where did Native Americans come from?
Some Native nations say they have always been here, emerging from the earth, from the caves, from the sacred north, brought by the first light. Their stories reach back through stone and snow, through the breath of dawn and the memory of fire.
Science, on the other hand, says they came from Asia, crossing Beringia more than 25,000 years ago, maybe earlier, through a frozen land bridge. But here is where the mystery deepens.
And here is where I ask you to follow me carefully. Because when we take all the evidence, genetics, archaeology, culture, linguistics, something doesn't add up in the traditional Native American migration story. And that's where the real questions begin.
Let's start with genetics. Science tells us that the vast majority of indigenous peoples across the Americas descend from just 4 or 5 maternal lineages, haplogroups A2, B2, C1, D1, and X2A.
These same macro haplogroups, A, B, C, D, and X, are also found in Asia, Siberia, parts of the Pacific, and Central Eurasia. But here is the paradox.
4 or 5 founding lines cannot, on their own, explain the massive cultural diversity of thousands of indigenous nations. The linguistic divergence alone, over 150 language families, would require either far more time than the Beringia model offers.
If the ancestors of all indigenous Americans were Siberian, cold, adapted hunters crossing an ice bridge, then how do we explain the tropical forest cultures of Amazonia, whose traditions mirror tribes of Southeast Asia, like the Shompen of the Nicobar Islands or the Sarawak tribes of Borneo?
How do we explain the naked or lightly clothed tribes of the tropics, while their supposed ancestors wore heavy, cold weather clothing? Cultural evolution does not work backwards.
Let's be honest.
People do not invent advanced cold protection, cross continents, and then forget the technology entirely. And how do we explain that tropical peoples in the Amazon share cultural traits, body paint, blowgun hunting, spirit cosmology, with the Dayak tribes or the Penan indigenous people of the Malaysian world?
How do we explain that the Arctic peoples, the Inuit, Yupik, and Aleut, have almost one-to-one parallels with the Chukchi, Kets, Evenki, and Nenets on the other side of the Bering Strait? In fact, the Yupik literally live on both sides of Asia and America today, a living reminder.
Look at the people of Tibet, Bhutan, Nagaland in India, and northern Myanmar. Their cranial morphology, weaving patterns, terrace agriculture, cosmology, and even high-altitude genetic adaptations mirror the peoples of the Andes, Quechua, Aymara.
Then we examine the nomadic nations, the Turkic, Mongolic, and Central Asian tribes, horse nations, bowmasters, sky, worshipping Tengri peoples.
Their portable architecture, sacred mountain cosmology, eagle symbolism, clan systems, reverence for the Sky Father and Earth Mother, all echo cultures of the plains.
Our linguistic roots whisper connections. Deep Proto-Turkic and Proto-Nahuatl share phonetic patterns, agglutinative structures, and cosmic terms that feel like echoes of a deeper human past. And then, the megaliths.
The Austronesian world, Micronesia, Polynesia, Indonesia, built colossal stone platforms, calendars, and star-aligned monuments.
Compare them to the Olmec heads, Maya pyramids, Tiwanaku stone gateways, and the monoliths of Peru and Bolivia. The parallels are not minor. They are structural, cosmological, mathematical.
To sum up these parallels, we have Arctic hunter-foragers, tropical rainforest tribes, high mountain pastoralists, nomadic plains warriors, and monumental stone builders, all showing transoceanic twins in lifestyle or technology in America, Asia, and the South Pacific.
How did tribes, with cultures so specifically adapted to their original environments, end up in the Americas with those exact cultural packages intact? Think about it. A tropical Penan-like forest people do not suddenly become Arctic nomads.
People don't lose their blowgun technology, then later lose that winter gear again once they reach the Amazon. That is not how cultural evolution works.
Cultures don't advance, regress, and advance again in clean cycles just to fit a migration theory. You believe that Siberian peoples traveled to the Amazon and reinvented tropical lifeways from zero, perfectly matching the cultures of Southeast Asia? That is not only unlikely, it is anthropologically inconsistent.
Science asks us to believe that tropical people somehow traveled north into Siberia, adapted to the cold for thousands of years, then crossed Beringia, only to run all the way back to the tropics and forget their cold adaptations entirely.
So what happened? I offer 3 scenarios, maybe 4.
Scenario 1, a mass multi-regional migration from Asia 15,000 to 25,000 years ago. Not one tribe, not one people, but many from many environments. Arctic tribes crossing frozen lands.
Asian highlanders following mountain chains. Nomads following herds. A world in motion. Each group arriving in the Americas with its culture already formed. Siberian Arctic dwellers established themselves in Alaska, Canada, and Greenland.
Tropical tribes crossing by canoe. Seafaring, Siberian nomads become plains natives. Sarawak-like natives establish themselves in the Amazon and Central America. Polynesian seafaring-like people establish themselves as the megalith builders like the Aztec, Maya, and Inca people.
Scenario 2, a now lost landmass exposed when sea levels were lower, bridging Asia and the Americas, not just Beringia, but an expanded world of habitable coasts and plains. A vast zone where peoples mixed, settled, traded, and moved back and forth for millennia, not knowing they were in different lands.
Scenario 3. Asia and the Americas were once part of a continuous human zone, whether through land, island chains, or geological structures now missing. Humanity populated this entire northern and Pacific world simultaneously, and this will sound radical and fringe, but explains it better than anything.
Maybe all of these are true together. Maybe migrations came in waves. Maybe some indigenous nations have indeed been here since immemorial time, as their stories insist, while others arrived later, joining an already inhabited world. That's the premise.
Because the evidence does not point to one simple answer. It points to a human past far older, more complex, more interconnected than the models we were taught in school. So I leave you with this thought.
Indigenous America is not the end of migration. It was the beginning and the end. A cradle of humanity that we are now discovering. From icebound coasts to desert canyons, from the first blades napped in obsidian to cities of stone and earth.
It is the center of an ancient world. A world where Arctic hunters, tropical navigators, steppe nomads, highland farmers, and megalith builders all left their mark.
A world where genetics, language, and culture remind us that humanity has always been moving, meeting, mixing, and becoming. And maybe the truth is that Native Americans did not come from anywhere else.
Maybe they came from everywhere their ancestors once walked, and they have been here longer than we ever imagined, far longer than what we give them credit for. To remember we all are one human family.